Thank you. Thank you so much for indulging me. I'd like to also invite the ancestors in to guide us through this conversation and to help us always heal in these moments of triumph and to acknowledge them. I want to invite to the stage our producer, Monique Walton, and Colman Domingo. What an extraordinary film, truly. Really, so much for us to think about and to applaud. The sneak peek in to the humanity that lives behind the walls that we often so judge and don't have an opportunity to really know about. Tell us, how did this happen? How did you find each other? How did this film get to you? For the film heads in the room, like, how do you get a film to Colman Domingo to participate in? And give us that history.
Yeah, do you want to start? Because you actually, I'll say, I joined the project. I mean, how does it happen? I think in a broad sense, it happens when a lot of like-minded people come together and embark on a journey and agree to take a risk, and to take a risk in being a community, you know, and making a film differently. But when I joined the project through meeting Greg Cuidar, the director, and Clint Bentley in Texas. I'm based in Austin, and when we met, we intersected by chance and basically realized that we had been kind of pursuing similar paths of filmmaking, and in this way of community-based filmmaking, and pursuing this idea that you could make a film involving the community in a way that was more of a collective exchange and was really collaborative. And so when they came to me and they pitched me Sing Sing, I felt like it was, you know, a film that I would have, you know, come upon myself, and I really, you know, wanted to be a part of it. And but they had at that point already connected with Colman, and that was part of, you know, when they pitched, they said, you know, Colman Domingo's attached, and I was like, okay, amazing. And they were like, we don't have any money yet, but we're filming in two months. You want to come with us upstate? And I was like, let me think about it for a second. And, you know, but I knew that there were so many elements to this that were aligned with what I wanted to do. And I thought initially when I heard the pitch, like, this is a film about healing. And I had been going through things personally that I was like, I would like to partake in a healing process. And then I just felt like, because of what it's about, there's kind of like this collective healing that I was hoping that the film could be for the audiences as well.
That's beautiful. You just said the word alignment, and that's exactly a word that I feel like that's what brought me into it. So to backtrack, Clint Bentley and Greg Cuidar, my director and co-writer, they approached me when they didn't even have a script. They had an idea because they were teaching artists at Sing Sing and knew a lot of these men's stories, and they were like, I want to try to tell this story, and they were wrestling with it for a long time, for like 6 years. And each time they came back, they were like, it feels like a bastardized version of what I experienced, let's put it away. And then they finally, you know, Greg one night just like sort of picked it up again and said, you know, he wrote down a quick treatment, and at the end of it, he said he wrote my name down. And, you know, I was off minding my black business somewhere, you know. But through circumstance, I heard a lot about them, and I remember my agent saying, you got to meet with these guys. They're just really lovely human beings that really want to create work, and I think the way that you want to, in alignment. And I thought, okay, let's have a meeting. So I had a meeting with them, and they told me about this idea that, in a very broad sense, that they were thinking about. I said, well, can you send me a script? He said, well, we don't have a script. I said, okay. They said, we have an article from Esquire magazine that tells you more about this program. And I was like, great. So I read that, and it was fascinating. And I loved just this whole idea of these men doing the work, using theater to do this life work. And, you know, I come from the theater, and I know what theater does and what can give a person. So I was like, I'm interested. Now, there was nothing set up at all. But I thought, I think my instinct was, let me get on board and start trying to craft work with them. So we got on Zooms, and after a couple Zooms, and we were talking about the work and what it could be and what I was interested in, they said, hey, we have an idea. Clarence Macklin, my co-star, said, there's a guy who's gone through this program. I think he would make a great co-star for you. Why don't we invite him in and we can do some more digging? And I was like, great. So I love the whole idea. I'm like, we're just sort of playing like in the playground. We're figuring it out together. And really where the lines of roles kept blending into this other territory where you're just giving. You know, it didn't matter you were a writer, actor, director. You're like, no, you gave to whatever it was. So it was just a really wonderful collaboration. And then after about a couple months, they were like, okay, great. We got to a script that we all felt great with. We're like, oh, this is kind of cool. And they're like, okay, well, when can we do it? I'm like, well, that's a whole other story. I'm really busy. I'm maybe a year from now. I don't have no idea. But, you know, and they were like, oh, we really feel like it was the spirit that was already moving and getting everybody on board, getting Monique on board, getting everyone saying like, oh, we got to get this done. And then I looked in, you know, Clarence's eyes and that big toothy smile, and he said, come on, Colman, you can't make time. And I was like, I don't know. I was literally shooting The Color Purple, and I had to go back to finish pickups for Rustin. So I'm doing these big tentpole films, and I'm like, man, because I'm like a research fiend, and I like to get in there and do the work for like 4 months before, and I didn't have that time, and so I felt really vulnerable. And I thought, but I had to sort of trust something different, honestly. And suddenly I was like saying, well, I have 18 days between I go back to Rustin to do those pickups in DC. And my director, Greg Quidar, said, I'll take them. I was like, wait, hold on. And I didn't say it so you can have them. I was just talking, you know? And so they built a schedule to build this film in under 18 days. I shot for 16 days.
Amazing, amazing.
But as you experienced, there was something going on that was, I think, bigger than all of us, saying we have to do it, and we have to do it now. For what it was a time thing that you felt like we leaned into. So I think that's how we found each other. And you know, I mean, and we found a model to build it in a great way where we all felt like we were doing the work. There's a beautiful video of my producer over here who does all the beautiful work that a producer does, but she's also like, hey, I'm cleaning. That bathroom needs to get clean. I'm cleaning that bathroom. Well, you know, I'm craft services today. I mean, this is a producer with the mostest. I've seen her do every single role. Like whether she does, I've watched her do everything and run this production in a very lovely way where everyone felt valued and seen.
Well, the vibe continues. I mean, it's so extraordinary. And I'm so grateful that you all found each other because you've given us a gift. You've given us something that we can talk about at our dining room tables, that we can learn from. So much of our unconscious bias, you know, is dispelled in this, and it's just so beautiful. Had either of you heard about RTA or rehabilitation through the arts or other arts programs in prisons before?
No, I mean, I have done, and this was not intentional, but my past, like, 3 projects have all focused on prison system in some way. And I had worked on my first feature film, Bull. We did research with women who were incarcerated. So we worked with an organization in Texas called Girls Embracing Mothers, which was about spending time bringing women's children to prison to spend time with them and do activities. And so we had researched into that. But I didn't know about rehabilitation through the arts, and I didn't know that there was a theater program inside prison. I had known about theater programs that were happening for formerly incarcerated people. So that was new to me, and just that it had become, that the effect of it, firstly, the recidivism rate that we mentioned in the beginning, but also just how transformative it really was for everyone who had gone through the program. It was just, yeah, it's
Yes,
incredibly,
it's an incredible
undeniable
program.
Yeah.
Please make sure you look into Rehabilitation Through the Arts. It's an incredible program. There's lots of programs around the country, but Rehabilitation Through the Arts is such a remarkable one of them. So, Colman, you kind of hit on it before the film started, but I'd love for you both to talk a little bit about how you structured the space on set. Like, how was it, first of all, working with formerly incarcerated men who are not professional actors, and also the choice that you made. And I know the director, Greg, had used this sort of model before in other films, but how did he even explain it to you, and how did you choose to use this form of, like, almost favored nations kind of in the contractual agreements with everybody to work on the film? I think for those of us in the film business, it's interesting to learn this, because I think it's an opportunity for us to see how we can get things done and how we can move forward in this industry where often it's very difficult for us to find work, get work, and accomplish what you've both accomplished here.
I'll start by saying I think that my director, and I wish he was here with us, there's something about Greg and also about Clint that whether they realize it or not, I feel like they come from like devised theater. They come from this space where they invite people in to bring in all their ideas, and without judgment, and say, okay, let's think about that. Let's think about what else do you think, and what else do you think about that, and being fearless with what people know and what they don't know as well, and that's okay. That's also a benefit. It's okay if you haven't been in front of a camera. It's okay, because we're going to find that together of what the relationships are and our vibe and the way we do this. So I feel like we're building together, and we also will find a sort of a brain trust. Everyone's coming in it from very different experiences, but I think like that's what you do in like sort of in the theater too, especially like when you're doing devised theater. You're like, oh, you come in and you're like, oh, we're going to make agreements today. We're all making agreements with wherever we come from, that this is what we're going to try to finesse and lean into. So it I don't know, I think it really breeds a sort of this beautifully very active space where you feel like you can have an opinion on something, or you could talk about something and sort of step a little outside of your lane in a way. And I said this before, and I really mean it, because I think there are moments where I don't know where my work ends and someone else's begins. Whether as an actor or even as Greg as a director, I feel like everything blended. Like I may have an idea about how it's staged, or, we may have different ideas about like, oh, what language do we need? And that comes from the ensemble, or what do we need to, activate? But it became this really beautiful space where everything felt alive, and you can capture it in that live way. With our DP, with Pat Scola as well.
Yeah, and I'll say, in terms of the financial structure, Greg and Clint approached me and they said, we worked on Jockey before this, and on Jockey we had this structure where everyone got paid the same rate and everyone participated in the profits. And what we'd like to do is on Sing Sing, we'd like to scale up that model. I was like, okay, interesting. But what it felt like was the right way to structure this, because it was such a community approach, and it was a way to make sure that everyone was on the same playing field and everyone felt empowered. And I will say, it's a testament to Colman to agree to do this, because it doesn't work unless number one on the call sheet says, yes, this is what we're going to do. And so it really made it possible. It really did. And it, these types of radical ideas, they're invitations to think differently and to think about, especially these days, it's so hard already to make a film. How do you invite people in a way where they feel like they're mutually respected? And then when you're inviting in people from this community, especially a vulnerable community like formerly incarcerated people, who are bringing their own stories to the screen and bringing their own lived experience, compensate them for those stories and allow them to participate in the profit sharing of the film for forever, you know. So that was really, it just felt like this is the way to stay aligned with our goals.
Thank you. I've seen the film 4 times. Okay, I'm a little bit of a groupie, I have to admit. I mean, a lot of the work that I do is in prison reform, prison abolition, and so this film was such a joy for me to see. There's so many like favorite scenes I have. There's so much beautiful cinematography. I can't believe it was shot in such a short amount of time. The cinematographer is really on it. There's a scene towards the end where Clarence comes up to you and you're sitting on the back of the wall and he's saying, you know, you've done so much for so many of us, you haven't reached out yourself, and you know, and then he tells you that you gotta admit that he killed Hamlet, which he did. But what have you acknowledged or seen, because it brings such humanity to the space, you know? We all think, when we think of prison, like everybody's fighting all the time and everybody doesn't want to like bend down and pick up the soap, and you know, there's all of that, which are real things, right? But there's also this other aspect, this other humanity. How did you guys come to that in the script? How did that build and develop? And
I think immediately when I first was talking to Clarence and he was talking about what the program meant to him. And first of all, in order to get into the program, you have to have a year of no infractions. So that means you have to get yourself together to get into the program, because this program is precious for people. And even how it became depicted in the film, you're like, don't take this from them. That's all the light they have. And they're holding on to it. And if they don't have it, what's going to happen to these brothers? And they're holding each other accountable. So with that, I think we start to find, I think that in particular, I'm glad you said it, in particular, once we start to find that, it started to permeate the whole script. Even moments of like, because I know the thing that I was very clear about, I said, I think this film has to be about Black and brown men being tender with each other. In a space, thank you.
Hashtag beloved, hashtag beloved.
In a space where that tenderness is dangerous, but it's a key to their liberation and their survival, and they need it, and it's a radical act, and that's what I experienced by talking to them. Whether they actually told me that that's what it was, that's what I heard. They said, no, we would show up for each other, and like, no, you can cry here, you can do that, whatever. And like, that's radical. It's radical, especially in that space. But they knew that they realized this is their key, and we're going to hold on to this. And so that's why it's all these moments throughout the film that are set up to just show how, you know, like when one is saying, one is being vulnerable. He can't even articulate the fact that he doesn't know that he doesn't know how to receive help as well. That he's very vulnerable. Yeah. And what is that doing to his mental health? You know, there's words we're not using, things like mental health and stuff like here. It's just experienced and saying like, oh, that's what he's saying. You need somebody, I'm here for you as well. And he's saying it in his own, you know, knuckleheaded way, which I love. But also then there's these profound moments, I think, that we start to find, and they were written, and I'll just say this and pass it on, but they were written, and then for a long time we struggled with it because they were written, and we're like, oh, I don't know what happens at the end when I walk up. I think I'm just getting the bus at the end, that nobody's there for me, that in those extra 7 years my mother had died, I had no family, so I didn't know what I was going to, which is the experience of many of these men and women. You don't know what world you're going back into. It's very vulnerable. And then the idea that we set that up with him waiting there, and Greg was so smart, he said, I'm gonna just put the camera in the car. And we've had 20 different versions of the scene written. You guys play it the way it makes sense to you. And I think that's the first take.
Brilliant.
That's Greg. That's Greg. And that's Greg having faith and trust in his actors,
yeah.
To say, and it becomes the most, for me, one of the most tender scenes of brotherhood. So I think at the end of the day, for me, the whole movie is about getting to that.
Yes, I know. I stood in the back for a minute, to just soak up the energy and to watch the end of the film. And I was like, okay, I got to leave because I'm going to be crying. I got to get out of here. It's such a tender moment, and it's so beautiful. And then there's no, mistake in seeing just before that, when you're leaving, your cell, you've finally gotten the thin paper, not the big stack, and you're leaving. And you look into, one of your best friends in real life and in the film, the cell there.
The fact that the guy who plays Mike, Sean San Jose, is actually my best friend.
Yeah. So great. Another hardcore theater actor, fabulous. But that it's not lost on us that you're looking into the cell and there's a young man there taking the place.
The cycle.
Continues. And what do you... I think what you hope is happening, but you tell us, what do you hope this film does and leaves audiences with?
Yeah, it's always a hard question. I think everyone takes from it what they need, but it is happening, which I think means that something's happening, that people are seeing and connecting to this on an emotional level. And I feel like that is what tends to move people and to change their minds. For me, what it opened up was that, prisons, just by virtue of how they are and how they're constructed, are largely invisible. We ignore them. They're everywhere. Living in Texas, I've learned, I'm from New York, but living in Texas, they're literally everywhere, but we ignore them and we ignore the people inside. And being a part of this project made me realize how much we need to sit with that and sit with the fact that there are people inside, and they're people, and they're human beings. And how can
I'm going to interrupt you for 1 second. How many people, show of hands, have known someone who has been incarcerated? Show of hands. How many people in this room have family that have been incarcerated? I will be one of those people. Are there any people who have been incarcerated themselves in this audience? No. Okay. Yeah.
So I think that it's about imagining our future, where perhaps prisons aren't so prevalent in our society. And I think that's part of what art does. It gives us a way to imagine and to believe that it's possible.
Yes. Would you tell us a little bit, I know that you filmed this actually at Sing Sing, correct? Can you tell us a little bit about what that was like and the response that you got from those that are still inside, or it may even be part of this program, or what was the feeling and what was the energy like there?
Well, we filmed most of the film in like a couple decommissioned prisons in upstate New York. We did our exteriors at Sing Sing. But one of the prisons that was decommissioned just 2 weeks before.
Oh, wow.
So you
Fresh
knew where you were.
energy.
It was fresh in every single way. And it's I don't know, anybody who's ever been in a prison, I was taking in all of it and trying to figure it out, like trying to make it math in a way. But it wasn't for me because I feel like I couldn't. The first thing I noticed is there was no air quality, no airflow. And I felt like it slowed me down. I felt lethargic all the time, to be very honest. The moment we had recall cut and we had a nice turnover to change lenses, I need to go outside. Or wherever, one of my holding cells, literally my holding was a holding cell. But anytime I had to get back to a set, I was always lost. So I always needed a PA to take me through because by design, you don't know which way is north. And so I started to think, what does this do psychologically to people? You know what I mean? It just feels like this, right? It's just like you're on this hamster wheel. It's just going to go around and around, and this is what your life is like now. Yeah. And the cells, just like, for me, I'm just like, you see the cells, and you're like, oh, so that's a cell. You're like, that's not made for human beings, actually. Right. And this place is definitely not meant for rehabilitation. It's absolutely not meant for healing. So you start to think of it in a whole different way. And for my fellow actors who joined us on this film, I know that they came in with such a, I want to tell you, all the guys I met, and I met them where they were, and I love that this is what our film does as well. It was never important for me to ask, so what did you do? What were you in here? Because I thought that is actually not the point. And I wrestled with it because I had to think, well, how do you engage and ask questions and whatever? I'm like, no, I'm not looking at anyone. I think it's rude to look at anyone as an anthropological study. I'm like, no, I'm just going to receive and talk to them, get to know them where they are. And where they are, these are men who served their time and went through programs, and they've been out in the world doing beautiful things. And like my friend Clarence Macklin would say, being out in the community to do more good and heal the communities that they may have harmed as well. Yeah. That he feels like his purpose, he knows, he's clear about what he's done, but that's not the sum of his parts. Mm-hmm. That he has more. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So I met them all where they lived, and they came in with such joy and love and brotherhood and camaraderie, and they were deeply ready to do the work and really just be actors on a set and to learn and to have fun and laugh and to break dance and
I love that break dance scene. And they're all like,
so we really enjoyed each other, and I know that I'm sure that there were times, especially one of my when Clarence says, he actually said he was filming. Because everyone goes to downstate prison first before they get dispersed all over upstate New York. But he said actually we were shooting a scene where I was held in the space right above. And so and he said, yeah, I never thought I would put these prison greens back on. But I thought it was a privilege because I think I want to tell the story of what can happen in there. Yeah. So he said he was slightly apprehensive. He said, but the purpose of this film was much bigger than that.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that that was something that we thought about too as the creative, just thinking about how do we create a safe space, knowing that we're going to this place that they've all been, and just really wanting to make sure that everyone felt like there was a place to process anything that came up. And I think, yeah, you said it best, and you helped create that space. We all did with this, just this respect, and also what Greg did as far as like allowing things to play out. So he wouldn't yell cut ever. That wouldn't be something that he would do. He would just allow things to run its course. And if anything came up in the room, we all acknowledged that something bigger was happening than just shooting the film, I think.
Well, this is opening week or opening night, really, for the larger release of the film, opening night here. What can we do? What can we do to support this film? Like, give us some action items.
Here's my action item. This film is not Twister. It's Twister's not Deadpool. But it has a lot of heart, doesn't it? And I think it's a film that we all need and we want. I hope that you engage with whatever platforms you do, or you buy tickets, or buy out a theater, or share with other people. But make this film yours. Be an ambassador for this film. If you feel like this film has touched you, or has meaning, or a place that you feel like this is the way we need to re-examine who we are and go into a theater together and laugh and cry, I feel like just make this film yours and get it out into the world with us. I would appreciate that, truly.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I would totally echo that. Please spread the word. Tell your friends and families. See it with your family and your friends. And, support the arts in general.
Yes,
Please.
Absolutely.
Always.
This film, I just know my father and my mother, but my father in particular is looking down right now going like, yes, he did it. This is the dude. Thank you so much for making this film. Thank you so much for making this film, both of you, and bringing this gift to us. And do you have a question?
We have one.
I'm gonna, yeah.
Yeah, we got one.
I always have a question. Hello, my name is Shannon Lanier, and one of the questions I have, for the people that were in the film that were previously imprisoned, do you have any success stories or any updates on what they're doing now with like Clarence and Divine G?
Well, Clarence is about to become a big old bona fide movie star, I think. I think that's a pretty damn good success story. That man, that's a performer right there. And really, I think he's charismatic and he's lovely and he respects the work, and I feel like he's a great success story. I think all these other men, they're doing great work out in their communities or in jobs or whatever, but they're really, living happy and whole lives, actually, and doing what they started to do on the inside, which is learn to become productive members of our society.
And I can only imagine this film is just so healing for them to see themselves in this way. I mean, when I first saw the film, I had not met Colman. I saw the film and I kept looking. I was like, wow, I think I know that person. And I think I know that person looks so familiar to me. And then I realized, oh, it's from work that I've done in Sing Sing, and all these brothers were inside at the time that I was doing that work. Yeah. And what an incredible testament to them, and how beautiful they were in participating and taking this opportunity to share this story. So, so important. Rehabilitation through the arts. Thank you all so much for coming tonight. And thank you, Colman and Monique.
Thank you all.
Thank you to the Martha's Vineyard Film Festival and A24 for producing this film and bringing it to us.